Order Schenectady City Council Committee meeting for Monday, June 3rd, 2024. The first item on the agenda is listed as a quarterly financial report for 2024, but both Mr. Ferrari and Mr. Lukemuck are out, and so that will not happen. But I would like to ask the mayor if there's some way we can get this on the agenda. This is my third request.
Yeah, Derek was going to be here tonight, diagnosed with COVID and is showing symptoms. So.
Well, like I said, this is the third request. If it's necessary, do we ask like an outside party to look at our budget and then do the presentation? I don't think any of us want to go through what we went through the last budget season. So I'm just trying to get us up to speed so we can go through the process and ask any questions. And
we provide monthly reports. The information's there. If you have a specific question, good chance I could answer it, or go back and have staff put it together.
I don't have specific questions today, but my request was for them to just go through, ask for our revenue versus what we spent, just so we could hear it in that format.
Okay, but we're giving you the reports on that, so we don't want to reduce that down to a specific question.
To hear the revenue and the expenses. So I know that we did in writing, but I wanted a verbal report for that. That's what we were asking for.
The Excel spreadsheet just read to you?
No, well, because we may have discussions, but I'd like a finance person to be here.
I anticipate somebody will be here next Monday night. I apologize. Derek was supposed to be here. His wife was diagnosed with COVID, and he became symptomatic and is off.
But in 2 weeks, though, right, for the next committee meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Finance. Thank you. I'd like to call the Finance Committee to order. And the first item is a supplemental bond ordinance for Rice River Road treatment plan. Mr. Paul.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Actually, tonight I have Mike Miller. Mike Miller is our consultant from CHA who's been putting the project together for the Rice Road water treatment facility. He's very versed in the additional costs that are associated with the project, first phase and then the second phase, because we are trying to make a redundant project. So I'm going to let Mike speak if you have any questions. Mike Miller.
Thank you very much.
Come over, Mike. You don't bite much.
Thank you.
Questions?
Questions already?
Go ahead.
We all set?
Oh, good.
Thank you. Yeah, the phase one work has been updated as we move through the design. Essentially, there's a number of components which are resulting in the increased cost. First of all, the fluoridation improvements were originally scheduled to be part of the phase two work. Mm-hmm. We did receive almost $1 million in grant money on that. Mm-hmm. And because the state has been taking so long to close on the financing, that project is actually started and it's almost completed. Mm-hmm. So we're rolling it into the phase one financing because that's going to close within months. Mm-hmm. If we waited to the phase two financing, we'll probably be waiting another 6 to 9 months. Mm-hmm. So this will allow the city to put in for those reimbursements and get that money back in pocket. Because to date, we've been paying those project costs out of our accounts, keeping the contractor whole. Okay. So that work slid up. The second big component of it really deals with resiliency and redundancy of the water system. The state is really pushing for people to look at the resiliency of these facilities and really evaluate what happens with climate change, and particularly when you're within a flood zone, which we are. Mm-hmm. So we went back and we did an assessment with the city, and what we found was if we lost one building, the main building, it was going to take our water supply out. Mm-hmm. And if we lost that building, whether it be because of a flood or because of a fire or some other incident, mm-hmm. We probably had 24 to 48 hours worth of water before we dried up. Mm-hmm. So as part of the project, what we've done is we've created this resiliency zone that coincides with the new pumps that we've been installing. Mm-hmm. So that if anything happens to that building, the city will be able to operate this resiliency zone independently and maintain water supply to the city. Okay. So that work entails bringing in a new power service, which is very expensive. I think we all know with that over the years. So we got a new power feed coming into the facility to feed the resiliency zone, as well as the transformers and all the electrical equipment to support that. And then we are making some additional improvements that were not originally planned to one of the pump stations to create this resiliency zone so that we could maintain our demand. And then lastly, in the spirit of full disclosure, there is a lot of work flooding the market, and so there are some market conditions as well that are driving the costs up a little bit. But to date, we have secured almost $4 million worth of grant funding for the phase one work. So that will bring that finance amount down by that amount.
And going on, we can apply for more grant money now this year.
Yeah, we are going to be applying for more grant money for phase two. So the next phase of the project, that's why you'll see within the packets, there's a phase one
Yes.
and then a phase two. Phase one, we're updating because we are getting set to go to financing, and we want to make sure that there's nothing preventing us from closing that financial agreement with EFC so that we can start getting reimbursed for the costs incurred to date.
Okay.
Okay? Any questions on the phase
Question, go
one?
ahead, please.
So I see it's great that you got $4 million. Congratulations, and I appreciate that you're applying for more grants. It seems like, so the $4 million is already, the 13,740,173 already reflects,
It does not.
oh, so now we're down to 9 million something.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct, which
Sorry,
is
just-
roughly a couple $1 million more than what we had originally planned to bond, or that was in the original bond amount.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Question for the mayor. Would this qualify under the COVID infrastructure grant through the state?
COVID, we're getting under the WIA money in this, so
We are getting WIA money.
And that's under the state COVID infrastructure grant?
Is that the bipartisan money, BIL money?
Are you referring to the bill money, the bipartisan infrastructure law money?
No.
The WIA program, there's a number of federal programs that essentially through the federal acts, and that money tends to roll back through the states through these defined programs within the state. So within New York State, that's WQIP grants for clean water, it's WIA grants for water, wastewater, and then there's separate bill grants that come in, as well as 0% interest financing and things like that.
Yeah, this was funding that was passed by Congress for COVID, and it primarily driven toward infrastructure to the state and the city or the town or village would apply to the state for funding.
That's part of the bipartisan infrastructure.
Yeah, maybe it has
It may
a
be
different,
part of the bill
different
money.
name,
I
but
think it's all part of the bill money.
okay. Any other questions? Go ahead, please.
So I know you're saying that due to kind of market conditions, prices are starting to increase. Is there any way of like how we can manage how we are? Is there any things that we can manage to, I guess, how we're going about this to kind of offset some of that? Like, is there like a faster commitment to like spending the money or something like that that would help mitigate some of that? Or
Unfortunately, the best advice I can give us is to push as many contracts out as soon as we can to try and time them at the right times in the year, which is, late fall, early winter, so the contractors hopefully are still trying to fill their tills. If you let these things slide until the spring, the contractors already have a lot of work, and they either want to push it out even further, or quite frankly, they're just not aggressive with their bidding. They're like, I don't need the work, so I'll give you a price. And, if you want me to do it bad enough, you'll pay me that money. So the best advice is to just keep moving forward and to keep accelerating and get the work out as quickly as we can.
Some components we do purchase separately though.
We do.
For the pump station, we used roughly $900,000 through Sourcewell. We purchased through the city for the generators. That way we avoid the markup from the contractors. So certain items on equipment, we can do that. As long as it's through Sourcewell, it's a state contract, and we did that for the pump station to save some money.
and thank you again for being aggressive in pursuing some of that grant funding. I know that that's not easy work either, just to even kind of get in the running for that, so appreciate
Oh,
it.
it's fun to get grant money.
It's
isn't
great to get it. Oh, goodness, thank you.
Should I remind you, we got $26 million in grant money for the pump station work last year?
Any other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion on the item number 1. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 2, supplemental bond ordinance for Rice Road Treatment Plant Phase 2.
All right, so this is the next phase of the project, same project out at the water treatment plant. This work involves an emergency interconnection with the town of Rotterdam, roughly $1 million to make that connection. It improves and it updates and creates the resiliency zone for the chlorine system. We include the emergency generator within this work, so that's one of those things where we can try and work through the state contract to procure that directly and save markup on that, because that's probably $1 million generator again. We've got miscellaneous building improvements that will bring these buildings, up to date and prevent leak-roofage. We're replacing a lot of roofs on a lot of the buildings, and then some security and SCADA improvements as well out at the time. So what we're really trying to do with phase 1 and phase 2, quite frankly, is to get the money invested in the facilities and be in a good position moving forward. I think one of the things that we try to strive is to take advantage of the grant money while it's on the table, because unfortunately none of us know how long these programs are really going to last. So we are aggressively pushing forward with a lot of this work, trying to secure as much grant money as we can.
Go ahead, please.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm not quite sure what you're referring to. If you can send me something to make sure that we're following up on it.
I will do that. I will send you an email, a copy of Paul.
Of the 12 wells there, 10 of them were put in the 40s. The newest 2 were in the mid-60s. So, and out of the 12, we're down to 8. So with the 3 new wells that have been tapped already, brings us to 11. So this is, they've gotten to their end of their life. They're running towards the end of their life cycle. So.
Question? Oh, go ahead, please.
Yep. Could you tell me the timeline on this work once we approve the?
We're hoping to have the last contract for phase 1 out towards the end of this year. So again, we want to hit that bidding cycle. And then the phase 2 work, we're trying to get financing set for next year. So the way this works is generally they'll let us know in December of this year if the financing is in place, and then we'll probably close on that towards the mid part of next year. So next year will probably be a design year in terms of moving that forward, and we'll be trying to hit that bidding market towards the end of next year again.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions on item number 2? Seeing none, we have a motion to move item number 2. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any other business for finance? I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to call to order government operations. We have one item on the agenda. This is the discussion regarding the conflict in Gaza. As you know, we've been receiving multiple emails and people have been coming down to council meetings, sharing their concerns and suggesting actions that the city council could take. With that, I'm going to pass it over to kind of President Porterfield so she can kind of frame that for us a little bit.
Thank you, Mr. Farley. So as he said, that we know that people have been coming to the council meetings and asking us to take a position. There have been meetings that have taken place outside of people coming to the council meetings. There was a concerted effort by Councilmember Williams and Councilmember Farley to bring the 2 groups together, which is something I've been suggesting from the beginning. But anyway, they were able to do it. However, the final outcome was not what we had hoped, where the groups would then come together and come up with a document that they could agree upon. That just could not take place. So at this point in time, we've received documents from both groups, also an additional document that was forwarded to us by Councilmember Patrick for us to take into consideration, and for this council to, at this time, have this discussion about where we are with this. I just do want to reiterate that this discussion is amongst council members, and tonight is not for public comment or input. So, we, not saying where anybody, needs to take a position tonight, but I think that we definitely need to have the discussion because there's been multiple conversations, one-on-ones and various ones. And but as a council, I think we need to come to the place where we have a discussion and then decide how to move forward. Ms. Patrick?
Yes. So I would like to, first of all, I'd like to definitely say for the record that I put in my resolution a couple of weeks ago, but it was not added to the legislative agenda because there was the idea that another resolution was going to come forward by two of my colleagues. That didn't happen. So now I put my resolution back in, and tonight we were handed the additional information as we were coming into the meeting. So I don't think we've had a chance to review these other resolutions. However, I do want to state that I think that we should review my resolution, which is basically indicating that I believe that it's not appropriate for City Council to get involved in an international matter, whether it's this one or any other conflict around the world. I think if we have that discussion and we can agree upon my resolution, then the other two resolutions we won't need to talk about. Because basically we will pass a resolution saying that we don't want to be necessarily considering the other resolutions.
Yes, and I'd just like to add some clarity about your resolution. I specifically asked you if we could put it off for a couple of weeks. I didn't just not put it on the agenda, so I just wanted to be clear that I asked you if we could put it off, and you were in agreement with that.
Okay, it's not my memory necessarily.
It is what happened. And in the future, I'll send by email. But I asked if you'd wait because there were discussions. Our hope was that it did not get to this, to a place where there was going to be, contention in council member versus council member. So I asked if we could do that, and hopefully the two groups which were having differences of opinions could come up with something, which is why the meetings were convened, and that was the hope, and that was, the guiding force behind that. So just wanted to lend that clarity to that.
So I guess for me, and I will speak for myself when I say this, I think that I can appreciate, honestly, like the opinion that, it might not be, I don't know that if there were a resolution to be passed that it would necessarily change the material conditions of the people who are amidst this conflict. I think that I don't, that's not lost on me. I think my intention was to talk with people who have varying perspectives to see like where are the points of alignment. And what I will say that the conversations that I was privy to, there was a lot of points of alignment. And I think that anytime we talk about something that has the potential to become so contentious is that we do focus there. So my intention was to kind of let's start there on what we can agree on, and then we can work on what's the best process in order to bring these things about. And also I believe in being responsive to people who have, been in contact with us through emails, phone calls, and coming down. I just think that I feel obligated to make sure that people are listened to, and that whatever decision we make an informed decision, and we can only do that truly by kind of listening to the varying perspectives.
So are we taking these resolutions one by one? How are we doing this?
Well, I think that, I think that we need to, I didn't think that we were going to get into a place tonight where we were going to...
Well, we're going to discuss them.
Mr. Williams.
So I can understand that. I think to Ms. Patrick's point, we could start with the resolution that she presented forward. And I kind of start based on my understanding of how this entire conversation was presented to the City Council. I was definitely someone more in favor of trying to allow this discussion to take place outside of the council, allowing some of our faith-based communities to have this initial discussion and then present us with an option moving forward based on a number of issues just outside of the overall complexity of this issue. And when that did not continue, or when that did not exist, I was aware of the email that you forwarded to the council. However, I wanted to declare with one very intentional item Was this a resolution that you wrote personally or
No,
altered
as
outside?
it's not, as I've indicated every time I've sent it out, which is more than one time, that it was adapted from a similar statement that was done by the Arlington County Board. So I really literally just adapted it to make it for Schenectady.
Right, and then by adapted, it changed the language differentiating the Arlington County Board to Schenectady.
Yes,
Any other?
pretty much. There might have been some other minor grammatical changes that I didn't think were, like commas and stuff from the original, but
I would say minor in that there was the replacement of their state elected officials, but outside of that, I didn't see any other adjustments. But reason, my personal perception of passing this at this point in the stage is that we've already fielded a number of council meetings where we've heard from individuals both locally from our community and outside from both sides, indicating the request for just a response from our council. And I wholeheartedly think that this outcome to pass this type of resolution, I think has been missed. And
is what?
that's-
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
has
last
been
one.
missed. I think the timeline for us to consider and pass this, after having heard council meetings, I think 4 to be exact, I think to then say to those individuals, again from both sides, that we are going to elect to not respond, I think reflects a certain city council that I did not become a member of.
Ms. Patrick?
I don't think it's us not responding. I think it's us responding by saying that we're not going to get involved in an international matter, and that we're going to see that as we move forward as well, in case other items like this come forward to the city council. So that is our response. That is a response.
Mr. Williams?
But I would say that response is very biased towards one side, and that's where the hesitation is. And
How is this biased towards one side? It's not biased towards one side.
The perception of not responding is biased towards individuals that would appreciate not seeing a response.
That doesn't seem to make sense to me, but I'd like to hear from my colleagues.
Mr. Turner?
I'm in total agreement with Ms. Patrick. We have enough to worry about in our city, being elected, and we're responsible to our constituents, the residents of our city, everyone that we serve. And I think we've just wasted a little bit too much time on this. My heart pours out for both sides that I hear that come on a personal level. It's not our responsibility to pass a resolution for either side or jointly together. I would hope that they could work on a resolution or solving something themselves. But at this point, and they're more than welcome to come to every council meeting, and I'll listen to them and I'll understand what they're saying. But I don't think it's our responsibility right now to even consider a resolution. I would support Ms. Patrick's letter.
So, I'm glad we're having this conversation, and the passion of people that have come and talked to us and presented to us, what's happening in the Middle East is deeply concerning. But I would not support a ceasefire resolution. I think, as what's said, is our focus should be on the issues that are directly impacting our citizens, whether infrastructure, education. I think a resolution would have minimal effect, if any. That should be left to the federal representatives. I think what was said here, that the groups couldn't come to an agreement, kind of tells us it's a very diverse issue, and we have a very diverse population of residents. And taking a firm stance, I think, would create unnecessary further division. So I think we could foster dialogue as it's been happening, continue doing that among the parties, and encouraging that approach. But I can't get behind passing a ceasefire resolution, because I think it would do more harm than good. I think it would be more divisive. Maybe for us, but maybe for the residents. I've spoken to many residents, and their question was, why are you even entertaining this? But I think we need to, from the folks that we've heard to. I think that's real important that we hear from them. And for me, I think it's responsible to say, we won't support a ceasefire for these reasons. and, but because that's a little bit outside of our purview. And that's my thoughts and feelings on this.
So I guess what I would say, listening to what my fellow council members are saying, and again, I do appreciate your input on this, and I can understand why. I think I'm in agreement that I think how impactful a resolution would be to the conflict. And guys, I don't know that it will have much impact at all. My lens was, okay, let's talk and be responsive to the needs of the people who have come before us, who have said a resolution means this for me and my community, or not having a resolution means this for me and my respective community. So I think that really what, I guess what I would again like to highlight is that we had varying perspectives at the table, and wasn't necessarily this or that conversation. There was a lot of alignment, and the alignment that we heard was around peace. Everyone wants peace, and everyone wants people on either side of the conflict to stop suffering losses to civilians and children and families and women and marginalized, vulnerable portions of the community. That was something that was a shared expressed value in the conversation that I witnessed for. So anytime that we have something we can align and say, okay, everyone seems to want peace, then the conversation is, how do we support that being an outcome? And that's where the no resolution conversation started to take place. So again, I think we take positions in the council that impact, that really represent the best interests of the people that live in our city. And I think that we're obligated, I feel an obligation to consider those things, and that's why. So that's kind of a long-winded way of saying that's our response to anyone who would say, why are you even considering this? Because as a leader in the community, people are coming to us and saying that this is something that's impacting them and their safety within our community. So I think that, we're obligated to do so. Mr. Williams.
And within that same context of being a responsive government, I can understand and definitely agree with, during our initial phone calls with members from the pro-Palestinian community asking for a ceasefire, I was very open in saying that I was not confident that a resolution would achieve some of their objectives. However, due to the continuous nature of their attendance at our council meetings, wanting to again be representative as an advocate from this community, trying to identify, in part to what Mr. Farley was highlighting, can we get to that common ground? And what quickly became apparent is that is unable to be achieved. So when they're trying to be responsive to the needs or requests of either communities, again, I lay with to say that passing something would cause further tension. I would argue that tension is already there. And I think our continued lack of having this discussion, no fault of anyone at the table, that added in or amplified people's wanting to know where each of our council members stood at. So if there is an obligation, I would ask to hear where everyone stands, not regarding your stance around any one resolution or option, just where you stand in general, as we have an onlooking audience who is not just in this room, but also tuning in, wanting to know who or how their individuals in these positions are going to advocate to address their needs.
Mr. McBain.
Thank you. We have to be very careful. We are stepping into uncharted territory here. Getting involved in something that we as a council should be very careful what we do. Over the years, this council, as long as I've been here, we have not bring forward resolution when there's conflict in Syria, when there's conflict in Libya, when there's conflict in Sudan, when there's conflict in Russia, where hundreds of thousands of people are being slaughtered, massacred, whatever you want to call it, on a daily basis. Yes, what is happening in Gaza should not be happening. We need peace there. I'm totally for peace. But we as a council, I think we should consider what we're getting into. This is international matter. We should encourage the organizer to call the White House, call the senators, call our Congress members, to lobby them to pass something from that level, federal level. Us on the ground here, our resolution. What are we going to do with our resolution if we pass one this evening and vote on it unanimously? It doesn't serve any purpose. Are we dividing our community? We should bring them to the table as what is happening. Bring them to the table, let's get to the table, the Muslim and the Jewish community, and let's work on issues that they have outstanding. That's what we need to work on. International matter, that is something on the federal level. Absolutely wrong what's happening there. If it stopped today, it should stop today. Right now, what's happening there. But we should not be doing this because we have not done it in the past. Why not? And I'm not saying I'm against what's happening in Gaza. Absolutely against it. But why are we as a council? It doesn't serve any purpose. Getting a resolution, what are we going to do? Get on a flight to Tel Aviv and hand it to Prime Minister Netanyahu and tell him the Schenectady City Council pass a resolution, ceasefire? He's not doing it. We have better things to focus on. And I just want to address some of the things that the texts that I've been getting over the last several weeks, and yesterday and today. That's okay. Good text, bad text, hate text, calling me all sort of names. I'm okay with that, and it can continue. And I just want to address one of the texts that came, and Ms. Porterfield and I had a conversation today, and you brought it up, about two events that happened related to event in Guyana that has to do with election on the step of City Hall a couple of years ago. That was organized by leaders within the Guyanese community, not the City Council, not John Rivera, on one Sunday evening. And then on the Monday evening, there was another rally, and City Council members were invited along with the mayor. John Rivera and City Council did not plan that event. Last year, there was another event in Central Park when there was a fire in Guyana. That event was organized by our community leaders. We were invited. Many others were invited. So I want to address those that the text I received and say that the City Council and myself sponsor those events or coordinate that event. Never happened on that level.
So I just want to bring it back to this particular one that we're looking at right now. And let me just say that I would not support moving this forward. What I did was I took the opportunity to look into the county where this came from. And just want to clarify, this was never a resolution that was passed by the county. It was by its, no, I went to.
No, I know it's not a resolution.
Okay, all right,
Mine isn't either.
Right, so what happened, it was not even passed by them, it wasn't even discussed, there wasn't even a letter sent. There's a woman who, I don't even know what her ask was, because all we saw was the response. And this response unsigned, so I don't know even who made the response. This is a response to a letter or a request. And so this person, whoever wrote the letter, is speaking on behalf of the county board, but there was never an official thing. I went to their official site that they made an official statement on this. So it was a response to a letter, and that was a response from whoever the author was, I don't know. I further looked into what this county, they talk about what their different perspectives, and that's a complex topic, and that they're a very diverse community. And I looked into it. It's first of all, it's a county group and a county board, and it's like over 240,000 people are on that, and it's a 5-member board. 240,000 people are in the county that they're over, and there's a 5-member board, and that board has zero diversity, except unless we're counting men and women, and that's it. So there's a specific lens, I say, that comes in, for me, at least part of it. Our board looks very, very different. This place also has a sister city. They say in their statement that they don't usually jump into international things. They do have a sister city program, and they issued a statement about what went on in Ukraine. So some of what they're saying is really not 100% truthful, because they have taken a position on other things. So I'm not willing to, because as you said, you only made minor changes to what they said. I'm not willing to sign on to a statement from an organization who looks very different than we look in terms of our governance and all of that. In addition, they have made what they're saying they don't do, they have done in the past. So I wouldn't sign on to that. And I think if we were to do anything, it would really need to come from the city council members here, not adapted from a board, again, who has a different kind of governing body. They're a county board with a county manager. They have a lot more people. They have zero, they have no ethnic diversity on their board. And they've already, made a resolution against what happened in Russia versus in the attack on the Ukraine, even though they said they wouldn't, doing this thing. So I would not support moving it forward.
Mr. Fuller. That's fine. I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate the research that you did. We could come up with our own statement. My bottom line is that what I'm trying to suggest is that the city council will not get involved in an international matter. So I don't care, we don't have to use this statement. We could just say that in response to the people that have come forward to us on both sides, that we are choosing to not get involved in an international matter. It could be as simple as that, 2 sentences. Contact your federal representatives. We do not have to pass this statement. And I wasn't putting it forth as a resolution. It actually was a statement. It was just sort of a position statement. So that's what I'm suggesting. I do think that the other resolutions would cause more divisiveness. There already has been. We definitely have had residents who have come to us and said that they feel unsafe. We have seen damage done in our community to desecration of a cemetery. I mean, there's already stuff happening out there. There were incidents at our last city council meeting that left a couple of us feeling physically threatened. Divisiveness has happened. So I'm definitely suggesting that we say we are not going to get involved in an international matter.
Mr. Williams.
Well, I would argue, and I think having this conversation at this agenda already dictates that we are involved, even at least to dedicating our time at this council meeting to this discussion. To answer Mr. Muir-Barron's comment about why are we even entertaining the possibility of presenting an action or a response from our council, and I would say within the purview of this group requesting a ceasefire has sought out their more appropriate means, which is the federal government or the state. I would say in the instance that those elements have remained unresponsive, I do not think it's unforeseen for them to use more locally based municipalities to represent their stance, for better or worse, which is one of the reasons why seeking out continued conversations, seeking out whether we can have more of a collaborative discussion. Until we had this moment, I don't think our community is able to heal. So I think, to your point, Ms. Patrick, this is something that we have to address in a number of different ways. I'm allowing this conversation, or not allowing, I'm enjoying the conversation where we're discussing this more, but when we get to the point where we're able to look at the other exhibits, I think those more accurately can address how this council can be responsive to this very unique circumstance. I can be very clear in saying I did not sign up or ran as a Schenectady City Councilman to be an international diplomat. That is not something that I wanted or sought out to. But again, in understanding this climate that we are in, this climate that our nation is currently in, I think it is up to us to understand what is an appropriate response. And again, I don't think at this juncture saying we're not going to respond is an appropriate response.
And I would just really say that, though things might or might have not happened in the past, I think that, we need to be responsive to the times that are here now. And we can't afford to allow our tradition to stifle our innovation and or our responsiveness to our community. So when there are people that are part of this community that are coming forward and saying that this is impacting my family, then I think that, again, that warrants a conversation, possibly multiple conversations and considerations on how do we, bring people together to say, regardless of what your point of view is on the conflict in Gaza, if what your interest is in peace, and I'm going to make an assumption, which is not a very safe thing to do in any political arena, but I would assume that most of the city council members, my colleagues, are definitely pro-peace, are definitely pro-humanity. And if there is language that can represent that we are for peace and we are for the safety of those in our community, where we condemn any acts of terror, whether those acts of terror are committed by Hamas, if we condemn acts of terror by Hamas or by specific armed wings of the Israeli government, and not to be conflated with the people and people's religion that live within our cities, because I think that what we can do is quickly start to conflate those issues. But I think that if there is a place that where we're all saying that we're for peace in Gaza, then I think that that's something that is or maybe we're not for peace in Gaza. I don't know.
I guess I do want to respond.
Yeah, please.
Again, I feel that we might all have different opinions. And so therefore, as a council, trying to pass something that would be representative of us as a council, I think won't work. I mean, I'm just being honest. And so therefore, again, I think the response is that it's not appropriate for our local city council to be going outside of our purview. We need to focus on the things that, our council was elected to focus on. And this is not something that our council was elected to focus on. In this particular circumstance or in any other international matter. So I just, that, I mean, I can't repeat it enough times, but.
Well, I think, so what I was saying, again, just for points of clarity, is that, well, number one, I think you agree that we all have different opinions on multiple things, right? Like there's usually not something that doesn't require some sort of a conversation or an exchange of ideas to get to a place of agreement or disagreement, right? What I'm saying is that though this is an international issue, based on the points that you're bringing up and the things that the phone calls and the things that people have been saying to us, this is an international issue, but it has implications on the well-being of people that live right here in the city of Schenectady. It really does. I mean, you can't. If it didn't, then it would. I agree that we could just say, hey, it's not. There's no implications here. But people have brought forth and said this is how this conflict or the ramifications of what's happening is impacting me, my family, and my respective community. So therefore, I'm going to be quite honest to say this is something I would love not to have to necessarily look at or really contemplate, but I think that that's what comes with the position of leadership when people are saying that though this is an international issue, the issue isn't just international. There are severe implications for people that live right here in the city of Schenectady. So that's why.
I guess my point that I was trying to make was that I think it could exacerbate the divisiveness if the city council was to pass a resolution, for example, one of these resolutions.
So I guess my question is, because I know we passed a lot of resolutions, so is it the idea of just passing a resolution no matter what it says? Or is it, because I would think that if there is a resolution, if there's a letter, if there's something to where people are saying, if we can agree on, we just are leveraging whatever institutional credibility that we have, how little it may be, we're saying that we would like for peace, for people to live in peace. If we can all agree with that, then I would say then that wouldn't be a problem, right? Because it's not the fact that it's an action, it's what the resolution contains is what we should really be looking into, right? Because I'm not just going to say let's pass a resolution that doesn't condemn the terrorist acts or doesn't condemn or Hamas or certain arms of the Israeli government. I'm going to say if that is too far for us to get into the weeds, if you will, but if there's a point of alignment where we're saying that we just want people to live in peace, and if we can get there, then what would be the issue? That's what I'm trying to go to the lowest point of alignment. Now, I'll go around, and if people feel that we don't need to address this at all, and we're not in agreement in peace, then that's a different story. Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, my first question, have the three resolutions, but they're unnumbered or unlabeled, So I didn't know if, for reference, if they just should be marked in some way. And Mr. Farley might have, just do a one-line resolution, we're all in favor of world peace, and encourage everyone to work toward that goal.
Absolutely.
But, yes. Mr. Farley.
Oh, so I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah, so I heard what you said, and it's sounding like we would pass a resolution that Schenectady City Council is in favor of world peace. And I think,
Well,
Period.
I know, but, I mean, that's like, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to, I mean, with all due respect, but, I mean, it sounds like we're, competing for Miss America. What would you like to see happen? I want world peace. I mean, that's the old joke from at least when I was a kid.
Congeniality.
I mean, it just doesn't have any teeth in, is that the right expression? I mean, I'm happy to say that the Schenectady City Council is all for world peace.
okay, so I guess then, again, that,
I mean,
but then we have to really look at and check our motivation for what we're doing and what we're not doing. Because if we're approaching this from a genuine and an honest and genuine way, then what we're saying is that we're okay with passing a resolution that says that we stand for world peace, which is clearly an international issue, right? So we're okay with that then, getting involved in an international issue, as long as we're...
no, that's why I started with, I think that we should make a statement that we're not getting involved in an international matter. I totally agree with what you just were saying.
So what I'm saying is that let's really just check our motivation as to why our positions are, and they shouldn't necessarily change just based on...
Right.
Right.
I just want to add this quick point of clarity for the mayor. Well, Ms. Patrick read the one that, the one that was Schenectady City Council who had received requests. That was from Ms. Patrick. The other two intentionally were not identified. They were submitted by the two other groups that were having discussions. We intentionally did not identify which group they came for, so that it would not be start out with a level of bias.
Oh, so they
I
didn't
just
come
say they
from-
get labeled Resolution 1
ABC,
or
yeah, they were
Resolution
supposed to be
2, so
exhibit ABC.
as they're referred to, you could,
Yeah,
for correct one.
right. So,
Thank you, Madam President.
yes, sorry,
So what you're saying is they weren't submitted by any of our city council members?
exactly.
Is that, do we have precedent for that?
Mr.
Well,
Williams.
I'm sorry, I stand corrected. Go ahead, Mr. Williams, I'm sorry.
So I'd say they're respective of ongoing conversations and discussions to identify a document that represents the community, especially at which their position comes from. So again, I don't want to get back to the document that you put forward, but I think if anything, it should truly reflect or have a tone of the city of Schenectady. And any that doesn't, I think, offers up the opportunity for it to be not reflective of the population and our demographics of our community. So again, the conversations that I've been a part of have been with multiple community leaders, have been with multiple faith-based leaders, and these two documents reflect two different positions.
Right.
I would wholeheartedly ask each of you to digest these, because I think they both speak to and address to varying different degrees. And for any members of our community that's wondering what we are discussing, I've spoken with Sam and Ms. Porterfield. They will be available there after our conversation. But again, it has been a complex conversation, and there's no easy way to continue through it, because anytime you have a statement, there is always a additional ask or additional asterisk to identify from the other side proper context. So again, there is no easy way to have this conversation, but I do think we are obligated to act.
And Ms. Patrick, I'm sorry, I misspoke. They were submitted through Councilman Williams, similar to your statement that came from someplace else that was submitted. They were submitted through Councilman Williams. So I'm sorry, it just wasn't written by him.
Gotcha.
How about it?
Mr.
So
Mosby.
just to follow up on this conversation, so these two resolutions, apart from Ms. Patrick resolution, you're saying that the group doesn't want to identify themselves, which one belongs to the either group?
I would say there's bias. So in wanting to digest this information, wanting to look at its contents and not necessarily the individual that submitted it, I thought was more appropriate.
So the group that you and Mr. Farley be meeting with, isn't it the Jewish community and the Muslim community?
Yes.
And are these coming from the Muslim community and Jewish community?
Yes.
So why can't we not identify it?
Mr. Williams? No?
I would say then again, there is no reason why we cannot identify it, but as we've been introduced based on everyone's position, there is a knee-jerk reaction to this conversation. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Right.
There's an initial response to the nature of this conversation.
Yes.
Right. And understanding that we are in a different context, specifically to previous events that this council has entertained to submit resolutions on, wanting to look at this from a different lens from Ms. Porterfield's point of how do we just evaluate the language? That's it.
Yeah, but so just after that, I respect your rebuttal there. But if a group is going to present a resolution or a statement, I would like them to stand by it.
Mm-hmm.
Because if Ms. Patrick present a statement here that was from a different county and drafted differently, you should have that.
But I would say she didn't submit.
I understand the perception that people don't know 195 because of
I did. I sent it out twice, saying that it was...
Ms. Patrick.
Okay, but I did. I
You
just
done-
wanted
are you done
to
speaking, Mr.
correct
Muveri?
Sorry, Mr. Muveri.
That's all right.
Are you all set? Okay. Ms. Patrick, did you have
I did, in the times that I emailed the statement, indicate that it was the Arlington County Board that had issued this statement and that I had just made some minor tweaks to it.
But in response to that, there are often behind the scenes conversations that the public is not privy to, hence providing that context at this table is important.
And I'll definitely get right to you, Mr. Turtle. I think it's really important that we recognize that this is a very sensitive and can be an inflammatory type of thing if we don't stay within our parameters as council members and kind of, again, check our motivation for why we're doing this or why we're even having this conversation. This is not a conversation that anyone really wants to be in a position to have. I don't think anyone is okay with people losing their lives, with civilians losing their lives to war, any conflict. I don't think anyone here is okay with that. What I want us to do is to be mindful that we don't use this as a us versus them, gotcha kind of moment. Let me win an argument with you at the table when we have a much larger obligation and opportunity to say, hey, this is my position. This is why this is my position. I understand and hear your position, and then collectively we can either agree or disagree, but I get concerned with especially around something that is so sensitive that we can kind of fall into that. The tone of the conversation can shift from what we're here to do, representing the people of the city of Schenectady, into our own kind of let's win the argument at the table, when it's just not a conversation that anyone's really super excited to have to be. I'm sorry, Mr. Terrell.
Yes, so just briefly reading over both of these, I would have liked to have had them prior to this evening, but they're both very different, okay? No matter who wrote one, doesn't matter. It's obvious from these two statements that the people bringing this to the table are not in agreement, okay? Not in agreement. So how can we be in agreement? We can't, and that's obvious going around and around and around tonight. And I value each and everyone's opinion, but this is not in our parameter. So all we need to say as a council, you guys keep going to the table, keep working on it, keep promoting peace within each of your cultures, okay? And that can happen. But right now, we should not even be involved in this. And nothing's going to happen here this evening, right? Nothing. So we make a statement. Keep going, come to an agreement, come to the table. We'll support you all the way, but we're not supporting any resolution at this time. Done. That's all I have to say.
Again, I think it would, I don't...
Around and around.
But we do go around and around, and we go around and around on lots of issues, and I think that there's a norm at this table. I don't think that we all operate on one accord. I mean, history will tell us that. Right. Yet we've had some pretty spirited and contentious conversations around things that impact the people that live in the city, and we were able to come to at least a point of clarity as to where we stood individually, and things have passed out of the council, things have not passed out of the council, because we haven't agreed on things, and it's okay for us not to agree. I just don't think it's okay for us not to have the conversation and honor what people have been bringing forward to us. I'm not okay with that.
I mean, I think that we have had the conversation. I think 4 of us around the table have indicated that we don't think that we should be making any kind of judgment on an international matter out of the 7 of us. And so I guess, there's 3 of you on this committee, and you can decide whether it's going to come out of committee for discussion again next Monday at City Council or not.
But at this point, what I would like to do, and I would hope that we would, being that to Mr. Turrell's point and your point as well, is that, some of this language that you just received right now, I would hope that what we would be able to do is take the documents that you have received tonight, as well as the document that you have submitted prior, take those, read them, kind of digest through those, and then see if, there may be some different thoughts, or at least consider, maybe a different course of action and or not a course of action. So at this point, I think that you guys have the information. We all have the information. Let's take some time. But this is very something we need to be very thoughtful about. Let's take some time to think about them, and then we can bring them back and decide.
In 2 weeks.
And truly, I don't want it to be missed because there was a lot of time and effort spent in crafting both these 2 languages, and I want to make sure both of those communities understand that, to Mr. Farley's point, he's always able to kind of keep our council centered and keep us well reflective of what we're saying and get away from the kind of the tone. Definitely, each document speaks differently towards this issue, and that is a very blatant and apparent understanding that took me a lot of hours of dialogue to also recognize and accept myself, because that was something I did not accept. I truthfully thought that we would be able to craft some collaborative language, and that was not possible. But again, to the time and emotion that was invested in both of these, I can guarantee you each community respects these as the true intent and their ability to identify language that addresses that conflict. And wherever you lay, and I'm not excluding the narrative that you submitted, but I would just ask you, compel you to just read that over. And I do think, although 2 weeks is additional time in this conflict, but I think reflective of everyone knows that whatever action we take, it ultimately is not going to in and of itself influence the outcome in the Middle East. It will not. But to Mr. Farley's point, there is a considerable ask from our community to respond to this. And that simple statement was the reason why my actions were that they were.
So I think, hearing, what people are saying today, and I appreciate your ability to kind of navigate this tough and difficult conversation. So it's not lost on me that this is something that has serious consequences to people professionally, personally, politically, all of the things. And I just appreciate you guys' willingness to kind of engage in this conversation from a genuine place. I will leave. Everyone has the documents that are in front of them. We have some time to digest them, and then we can decide whether a course of action will be taken and what that course of action will be. Oh, I'm sorry, President Perry.
It's okay. So, and I just want to remind folks that, it's been brought up that people, wouldn't necessarily agree and we can't come to an agreement. Each council member has an opportunity at the end of the meeting to state their position on whatever is going on. So just keep in mind that if we get to the place where we're just not able to pass anything through, everyone here has an opportunity to stand up and say, this is where I stand. So that is not something that you can always exercise that. If we get to the point where it's just never coming up with anything that everybody can agree on, and sometimes that happens. And as has been stated, we have to make sure that we're also, as we're doing this, make sure that we're making sure we're doing the business of the people. And I've gotten statements from people that because of the number of people at the council meeting, that people didn't have an opportunity to speak. And I've figured out a way to rectify that if we get to that place again, because city business should still be our priority. I'm not saying it's the only thing that we do, but it certainly should be our priority. So I will just make sure that people that come to the meeting have an opportunity to speak on city business that is outside this present discussion that has been ongoing. So I just want to remind council members again that if you just can't see any of this being anything that you can agree to at all, you always have the opportunity for miscellaneous business of the council to state whatever it is that you would like to state. So, Mr. Farley.
Thank you. But we did agree on the world peace. That's something that we were able to at least get agreed upon. So, any more comments, questions, or concerns around that? Mr. Williams?
If I can, throughout this conversation, I always recognize that, or throughout my comments with the community, I always recognize it's not my place to sway anyone's opinion or their perspective on this issue, and I accepted that. But wholeheartedly, I wanted to say I appreciate everyone's openness and responses, and I think you'll find that the community, regardless of how they interpret your responses, will appreciate that thoughtfulness with being transparent.
So I just want to, so government operations is not going to consider this this evening?
Well, there's no.
I mean, in terms of, seeing if it comes out of committee.
It's a discussion.
This was a discussion point. If you on the agenda, that's why it was. It's listed.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's listed as a discussion point. So just for that particular reason, so we can have a discussion and everyone can make an informed decision if and when we get to a point of decision. That's why it was on the discussion point. Mr. Torres.
Hi, thank you. Ms. Porterfield, I know you said you weren't in favor of passing or considering Ms. Patrick's statement, but I didn't hear a stance from you on, where you may stand on this.
Go ahead.
No, I was trying to get a
so,
question on what I meant.
Well, I made my statement. I'm not willing to do this. I'll read through the rest of it, and then when I feel it's appropriate, I'll make my statement.
Okay, thank you.
And just if you're wondering whether I think we should get involved in international matters, I think there may be opportunities where we will get involved in international matters. So I will not blatantly and blankly say never international matters. I don't know what the future holds. So if that's what you're looking for,
No,
there
not
it is.
at all. I was just looking
Yes.
for your stance. Thank you.
So that was helpful. I mean,
Because I will never blanketly say, because I don't think it's, even as elected people, that you blanketly say you will never, because we don't know what the future brings. So I will never just draw a line in the sand and say, absolutely, I will not cross that line. I will take into consideration what is happening at the moment, at the time, and use that to make my decision.
And I think that, again, for me, just for clarity, it's like, though it's an international matter, it definitely has a local implications, and that's where I think is where, is what obligates us when people are coming to talk to us and saying how it's impacting them within this community. Then I think that's where we're obligated to respond, and understanding that our response might not be adequate to what some people would like, and that's okay. I think that we just, I don't see this as only of international matter is kind of the point I'm saying. Primarily international matter, but definitely has some pretty serious implications with us locally. So, if there's no more questions or comments around this issue, I'll leave everyone with this. And I'd like to accept the motion to close government operations.
So,
Second.
We're closed. All in favor? We're closed.
thank you. I'd like to call together City Development and Planning. We have 8 items on the agenda. The first item is Mrs. Carver, call for a public hearing for the Historic Commission changes.
Good evening. On March 28th, the proposed Historic Commission City Code changes were presented to City Council, and we asked for a zoning coordination referral to be sent to the county, which it did get sent. We received a response with no comments but the recommendation to defer to local. So today I am here asking City Council to call for a public hearing regarding those changes, and if needed, submit those changes to the commission.
Ms. Patrick? So there's no questions? Do you have any questions?
I thought you were asking a question.
I thought you were asking a question as well.
You got me there.
So you're moving it?
Yeah, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank
That was
you.
easy for you. All right. Excuse me. The next item on the agenda is the extension of zoning moratorium on the submission and processing of building permits certificates of occupancy, certificates of use, and land use approvals for smoke shops, vape shops, and tobacco or vape consumption businesses. Ms. Barash.
Madam President, I'll take that one, if
Okay.
that's okay. This is, last council meeting, you transmitted the proposed ordinance up to the county. We haven't gotten response back, so during the pendency of that, waiting that response, this is an extension of the moratorium that ends on June 10th. Yeah, and that the public hearing is on Monday, but also you can, it ends on that day, so you can pass this ordinance after the public hearing to extend it out to September 10th or to such earlier time that you take final action on the proposed ordinance.
So with that, how are we doing? I know the reason we're having this moratorium because we were working on the zoning. Where are we with that?
Well, that's the zoning ordinance.
Right.
That's
So-
gone up to county planning for the input, just like the Historic District Commission. So once we get that back from county planning, then you'll have the final ordinance draft for your review and approval.
So you're waiting for back to come?
Yeah, we're waiting for the county to transmit that back, just like they reviewed the Historic District ordinance. So once we get that, then you'll be able to take final action on it. But during that pendency, we're just pushing that out a little bit as we await the...
But we don't anticipate them being out till September?
No.
to
They have
respond
to, by code, they have to do it within 30 days.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. And when did we send it? I'm sorry.
It went out last week.
Okay.
So I anticipate in the next few weeks we'll get a report back.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Mutavera?
So we have to have two resolutions here. Is that?
No, it's just an ordinance. You have the public hearings on Monday, and this is the ordinance amending the original ordinance that expires on the
On Monday.
September, on Monday. And this is just pushing that moratorium period out another 90 days to September 10th. But it's anticipated you'll get that before that time, the ordinance, for final action.
So that
So
answer
it's just the one.
does that answer your question, Mr.
Yes.
Mutavera? All right. That case, I'll entertain a motion.
So
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is a ceremonial resolution recognizing Juneteenth, 2024. We do this every year, so just asking for the council to consider passing a resolution recognizing Juneteenth.
So moved.
second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Item number 4, revisiting a discussion about reducing city speed limit to 25 miles per hour and other traffic safety measures. Ms. Patrick?
Yes. I first want to clarify that I wasn't thinking that we would do 25 miles per hour across the whole city, but rather that certain neighborhoods would. So basically, I just wanted to initiate the discussion again because residents have come to us again, continue to come to us about the issues related to speeding and other traffic violations in the city. So, I wanted to bring it back. I thought that we probably would need to have other staff come in and talk about this, but just wanted to put it out on the table and see if folks were interested in revisiting this.
Well, the last time that we did discuss this, Mr. Wallen was here, and he did say we had to have a traffic engineer who was also here, right,
Yes.
if I remember correctly. And in addition to that, we would, if we were going to do it, we'd have to figure out where we could do it versus where we couldn't, because some places
Yeah.
we wouldn't be able to do it. At this point in time, I don't know that Mr. Wallen has put anything forward, or we even asked him to put anything forward where we could and where we couldn't.
I'm not sure if it's Mr. Wallen or Mr.
No,
But he's working with Mr. Wallen.
right.
Brian Cannon.
Yes.
Mr. Cannon. Mr. Cannon.
Oh, I've not met him.
What?
I've not met him.
No, I haven't either, but I'm happy to reach out to them, or would that be appropriate for your office to reach out to them to try to present something back to us? Or-
We have to ask what you want presented.
Right.
I guess I'd like to have, their recommendations on whether reducing the speed limit to 25 mile an hour in certain areas of the city would help to alleviate some of the issues that residents are coming forth with concern about. So it would probably be a traffic study.
Yes, Mr. Farley?
I'd also like to know, like, where, like, kind of like what are the parameters in which those decisions are made for, like, where we could decrease speed limit and where we couldn't, because I remember, like,
Yeah.
one point in the conversation, I was thinking, we just need to increase stop signs, right?
Well,
and then kind of, and I don't know if I'm wrong about this, but I remember, I think it was Mr. Wallen that was saying that actually increasing stop signs in certain places won't decrease, will actually can have a reverse effect and won't make things safer, kind of, because there's some other byproducts of that I was unaware of. Like, so I was thinking, like, yeah, I'd like to see, like, where we could do that and where we couldn't, and kind of like what the rationale was why. And I guess my question is, does that require a complete traffic study, or is that more, is there something, Mr. Mayor, I don't know, like, if you, like, is there something that where we can get kind of more of a, at a glance, or is there going to be a traffic study conducted anyway, so should we just kind of wait for that? I guess that's what my question is.
Well, some of it's a policy decision of the council, what the speed limit is. Some changes do require a study to validate or substantiate what action you're taking. Again, it depends on what road and what the intent is and what the council's looking to do.
Ms. Patrick?
And I just want to say that that was where, you're right, that the other traffic calming measures, an expression that I learned when we, over the course of time of talking about this, would include, looking at stop signs, looking at, speed bumps, looking at all those other kinds of things that might help. But there's also, because we also have had the conversation around the other side of this, which is enforcement. So in fact, we've even had our police come and talk to us about that, because that has implications as well, around staffing, around lots of stuff. So I just wanted to bring it back to the table because obviously we're hearing from residents, at least I have been hearing from residents continuously around issues that they feel are happening in their neighborhoods because of speeding.
I'm sorry, you were making a point, and just let me.
Yeah, I was thinking about, because I know that we did, that on Kings Road, and we got a lot of information and data that was based on Kings Road in particular, and based on that information that we got from Kings Road, is that something that where we can kind of just repeat that in other areas? So my question is is there going to be a larger traffic study done? Is that in the works, or is there going to be responsive to whatever neighborhoods are coming forth to say, like, there's an issue?
Yeah, I don't think that we have anything underway right now.
Okay, okay.
So I guess that really kind of goes to the mayor. Is there, based on what's all the input and all the discussions we have, is there a traffic study underway right now?
Well, we're collecting a lot more data than we've had, and we're collecting more than most municipalities have. Some of the other calming devices, the speed humps, we've deployed those, looked at what the impact is. We've moved them a couple locations. I have not seen any accident information from that, which is what really drives a lot of these events. The speeding might be above what the posted limit is. If you don't have any accidents, you're kind of flying with the angels. We do some of these things where you put up stop signs, you're going to probably increase the rear end collisions, the fender benders, so that is what you articulated, what Mr. Wallen pointed out. There are consequences or different scenarios that play out for any of these changes that you make. And we've all talked about the overall thing is just educating people to be compliant with what the regulations are when they're driving the car. And if you do that, it makes life a lot simpler. I can put that on the World Peace Resolutions and just follow the B&T law too. But yes, if you want some of that back, we can maybe break it down into components. So we're not, a lot of it you could talk for 2 or 3 hours here covering the whole city, so it's break it down into specific areas and points that we think are more easily achievable to get some of the goals that we want.
So can we just couple,
Yep, I was gonna
we have a
say.
couple minutes to hammer that out. Mr. Williams, did you have something you want to say?
Yes, and I was going to add to Mr. Mayor's point. I think it's important that we be intentional of what we're trying to achieve. And in case in point, being driven by like either accident-prone areas or like high nuisance areas, where again to this point, like if we're trying to implicate a change, like the old adage, like, don't change something that's not broken. So I know some people don't put a lot of value in calling the police department because it may be responsive and not preventative in some instances, which I would argue against. I think that provides us the proper data and context to evaluate doing these types of measures. So again, to the mayor's point of understanding that you taking it upon yourself to speed throughout different communities or to drive on the roadway in a manner that's not appropriate, it comes at an expense to someone else. So again, please be considerate of your surroundings, but also again, if you are identifying these areas within your community, please call the police department. For better or worse, that helps us as a council identify the appropriate means to respond. And as a council, we need to make sure that we have that understanding in mind. If we gather this information and do nothing with it, it is intrinsically a waste of time. So as long as we're motivated to act with this information, I think that is the most appropriate way forward.
Yes, Mr. Mutavera?
Yeah, thank you. I think when we discussed it the last time, we did identify a couple areas, especially the school zone. I think that was a focus point into the school zone to look at how 25 versus 30 would affect those areas.
Well, they're 15.
Yeah.
They are.
And high traffic area and high accident area.
Yeah.
So I think we did ask for a report if I'm not mistaken. So we just have to follow back and see where those reports are.
Yeah, the school district, I'm sorry, but Ms. Porterfield, we just, I think the school zones are already set at 15 miles per hour. But I think, in terms of other high areas, I think Mr. Williams just said, where there's more accidents or more violations, that is, we can ask for that specific.
For Mr.
Okay, Mr. Mutavera, you had another comment, and then the mayor.
No, I just want to add, in terms of that, we can look at when we had, I'm trying to think back what we discussed and what we asked for at that point in time, and we're supposed to get some report in terms of the speeding across the city and high traffic area, high accident area, and to bring that back, but I think it went dormant at that point in time. So I think getting those reports will help us to identify the area that needed the attention and to look at the speed limit at that point in time.
Mr. Mayor.
The highest incident area for both auto pedestrian and just autos is Brandywine Avenue at State, Albany, Dwayne, and when you get to 890. We have spent a number of years lining up the money, rebuilding that, realigning it, and there's still some constraints because it's an old city, you don't get things necessarily quite the dimensions you want. And I think all the traffic control devices now are operational, being sequenced. And so that's an area where hopefully we're going to see, we spent a lot of money, millions of dollars, that we're going to see a drop in the number of events there. And some of that we'll learn from that. Do these things pay off in terms of minimizing auto accidents? And again, it had the highest incidence of auto pedestrian. Those are ones where you get serious injuries. A lot of the auto accidents where you get two cars bumping into each other. Yes, it's not good. Yes, today's world, it's not cheap either, but the injuries are minimal. So it'll be an area where we spend a lot of time, collect a lot of information, and are going to be able to see, hopefully if these things are working and making a difference.
Mr. Mutavera?
Yeah, just to add to that, so one of the takeaway from the last discussion we had was the enforcement, and do we have the manpower from the police department to do this enforcement? Because it's one thing that we reduce the speed limit to 25 if we ever do that, but how are we going to enforce it?
There's nobody here from the police department.
Yes.
It's not necessarily my position, but if they were here, they would say they need more cops.
Yes, and that's what I'm trying to do, because if we're going to do this, then we're going to need to enforce it. But then how do we enforce it?
And I just want to follow up against Mr. Williams and Ms. Patrick, that another area of the city that we're hearing a lot of complaints, or at least I am, is down on Erie Boulevard. People coming out of the side streets and trying, pedestrians I'm talking about here, trying to make their way across, and things that have happened, people have gotten hit. So we definitely need to address this in some way. I'm not sure if 25 miles an hour or more traffic calming devices or more.
Right.
But we definitely need to bring this to a place where we can it makes a difference. Historians.
My comment was going to your point, there are hidden corridors around the city where if we continue to try to retroactively respond to it, I think we're always going to be chasing traffic. And then also Chief Clifford did come here and provide a presentation of you put a device that identifies that you're exceeding speeding, or you put a patrol officer in any one position in the city, and almost instantaneously all of Schenectady knows to just drive around that police officer. But to your point, Mr. Mudabaran, the conversation around the school zones was, I think there's a home rule or something that we could apply to receive to have cameras in those areas. And myself and Mr. Palomini was to requesting to see if that can be extended to other areas in our community where we can utilize technology to kind of identify excessive speeding and then also do like automatic ticketing.
So just to, we already, the home rule, we've sent it in, we have our bill numbers, I'll be sending you actually an update on that, where we are with that. So we did follow up on it.
Yeah.
And so, just so you know, it didn't just go the way of, the black hole or something. So it's been followed up and we finally are there. Ms. Patrick, did you have another comment?
Well, I just, I think that, basically, I think we probably would want to have a presentation by, whether it's Mr. Wallen, Cannon, and someone from the police department, maybe a joint, the three of them. I think that would be a good thing. I mean, I think another thing would be I heard from somebody again today that's in a different neighborhood from other people that I've heard from. So I'm sure if you all are getting similar kinds of things, maybe we could also, maybe send, to Ms. Maiku, here's this neighborhood, that neighborhood, this neighborhood, in preparation for, and then get those passed on to the folks around the presentation, or little studies in certain neighborhoods depending on who we're hearing from. I don't know, just throw that out to you all.
No, I think that makes sense, because as we're trying to do this by a silo kind of approach, it's not working.
Right.
And so we need to know so they could take a more overall look. So I think that's a good suggestion. So with that, if anyone has anything, forward it, because I know that all of us, or each of, individually or more than one, I don't know how they all send their emails. Not sure how people decide where to send their emails, but get emails and comments regarding traffic safety issues. And I usually forward mine on to the mayor's office. But it's a good idea if we're going to do this report that people forward them all to Ms. Maiku, and she can then forward them on to whoever's going to do the presentation. I think it's a good idea to have people from all three of the groups that you mentioned, the chief, Mr. Wallen, and Mr. Cannon, to come and kind of have us.
In terms of timing, I think we'd have to give them more than 2 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I just don't want to lose it again in terms of, this is the third time that we've talked about it. I think I put the dates in here that we have addressed it before, so.
Mr.
Yeah, I think that we should, because we're collecting all this data. I remember Mr. Carucci kind of came and gave us a presentation. It was really cool, and I was like, really shocked at the level of all the information we could get. So I would just say that we should be looking at the information that we have currently and see what is actionable. I think that's a pretty safe place to start with what's actionable, and not only in enforcement, because we keep talking about awareness and education. And I think that might be something that is a easier lift than necessarily enforcement, or maybe I should say a different lift, but it's just something I say that we really is worth exploring with the data and the information that we have now. And I think that, some of the qualitative data of residents that are saying this is impeding my quality of life is something that where we can, at least if we can't, justify certain interventions without a traffic study, then what is within our wheelhouse where we can at least respond to your point, so we're not continuous to just, I mean, this is a conversation I'm sure will go on, but at least as the conversation is going on, we can be responsive based on the data that we have. I also think that this will be a good place to kind of partner with the school district. I do remember some time ago there's conversations about like some of the research that the schools district has done on like walking school bus models and walkability for students to get to school, and I think that those could be good data points to see like how we can respond there. And I know that the mayor was, really open to supporting, any ways that we can increase safety for our walkers within the school district. So I think that we should maybe include them in that conversation. I would definitely reach out to do that, if that's okay.
Are you just waving? That's how you handle it. You, Mr. Mancini?
Again.
Okay, must have been involuntary. Any further discussions? Okay, so we will, just to wrap it up, we'll send the information, any group, anyone we heard from, any areas, we'll forward it to Ms. Maiku. Ms. Maiku can then forward it. And Mayor, we'd have to ask you whether we could get the police chief, Mr. Wallen, and Mr. Cannon to put the information together and provide a report to the city council. And so will a month be done with you? 2 cycles?
Sure.
Right. We bring it back in 2 cycles. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. The next 4 items. Amelia Street needs to be executive session, yes?
The ordinance should be public, and then the other 3 pieces should be executive.
So item number 5 is the ordinance abandoning a portion of Amelia Street. Ms. Barash.
Did you want me to take this? No.
It doesn't look good. What do you want to say? Now we're going to dig into it.
Okay, I'll take it, no problem. So there's a vacant lot on Amelia Street. Amelia Street is a paper street. There are 2 buyers interested in purchasing portions of it. This has been discussed previously. We are now ready to move forward from the law department. We needed legal descriptions for each of the lots in order to be able to describe them in an ordinance and thereafter in the respective deeds. So you have, in front of you, you have the...
Nothing.
So we can discuss the prices in executive session.
Yes.
Yeah, that will be the
So in terms of the abandonment piece of it, though, I thought we were going to, because I see no documentation that at all regarding the abandonment piece. The legal description, I see nothing. I see.
It was we had a public hearing, I guess, last year on the abandonment of the paper street, which is a paper street, that's listed on the official map of Schenectady, that indicating that at some point, if we ever wanted to use that, that would be a street. So what happened was last year, people expressed interest in purchasing this paper street. You had a public hearing, because you have to have a public hearing before abandoning a paper street, that the city is no longer going to be using that property for anything. So you've done that, and during the course of that time period, when you had that public hearing last year regarding the concept of abandoning this particular portion of the street, there were legal descriptions had been made regarding the parcel itself. Right now, it was just on a map. So therefore, they had to do the legal descriptions by meets and bounds and to divide the 4 corners of these particular lots. So there's 2 things that you all have to do. One, you have to abandon the street. In other words, you're making the declaration, and that will be in the ordinance language. You're not using this make reference to the public hearing that you had last year. You're not using this for public purposes, you're abandoning this street, and that portion, the portion that you're abandoning will be in the legal description of the ordinance. The second thing you have to do is then the actual sale. The sale would be in the executive section because there's certain terms of it. But the public, that's how come you had the public hearing, that you're abandoning the public street, and then you're abandoning that paper street with the idea of selling it as parcels, and that's why the ordinance goes first, and then the sale has to go second, because you have to abandon it first, and then put it, and then it'll be up for sale, or up for sale.
I understand that, and I appreciate all of the explanation. However, some of that really needs to be in writing, because we have nothing here, of like what you just explained, really, so that there's some documentation of what's going on and what the process is.
What the ordinance will do, what the proposed, yeah, I understand, but the proposed ordinance, when you have it on Monday, will have the public hearing notice attached to it, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So it'll be a complete package.
Right.
So the council
In the
can
future,
look
though,
at
here,
it.
at
Right.
least the council needs to be able to have that. to
Okay.
kind of review.
Understood.
Madam President, the reason that's actually, I just realized that it's not in here is because we are waiting for confirmation as to which legal description goes with which section, block, and lot number. So the ordinance, you will have it on Monday. This has been a process to get done, and we are just waiting on that information because we need to know which of the legal descriptions to drop into the ordinance, so that, because we're not abandoning all the lots, we're abandoning 2 of the 3. So once I get confirmation of which legal description goes with which SBL, then I'll be able to drop it into the ordinance, and you will have it by Thursday, or if we get it back in time, which I assume that we will, and then you'll have it for Monday.
So when they're really not ready then, we don't have, because I think the last time we talked, we said that we were going to have all, so it's really not today ready for, we don't have all of that.
I don't have control over what information comes into me. I only have control over what I can ask for. So we are in the process of getting the legal description for the section, block, and lot numbers. It's a process. We're almost there. We've explained what the ordinance will contain, and it will be available to you as soon as it's ready.
Mr. Mayor?
Again, this was also the point of contention of whether we give a quick claim deed or do a warranty deed. Those certifications for section, block, and lot number are signed by the county, isn't that correct?
Yes.
So, waiting for that. And even though it says Mr. O'Brien has outlined is to do the ordinance first, if you don't have the agreed on price, I would tell you not to do the ordinance first, because that's our point of leverage to actually sell it.
Yes.
So that means we,
Don't.
I know that, so we won't be discussing those properties when we go into executive session,
I
because we
would
can't.
suggest that you do
He's-
discuss it.
Oh, okay.
Whether or not you actually
Vote
put
on
it
it.
forward for
Okay.
Monday night, solely up to the
Gotcha.
council.
Okay.
So you're suggesting we don't do the abandonment first? Is that what you're suggesting?
Might still do it tonight, but I would wait till you go into executive session and
Well,
agree on it.
Well, I have to tell you that I'm still, in terms of doing the abandonment, I just would really like to see more documentation. I understand that you don't have control over it, and so this is not about blaming you, but simply making sure that the council has the information before us. So, we've talked about it a lot, and I just don't want us to have to come back because we made a misstep because we didn't have the information. So that's why we just like to try to make sure it's all here before we make these decisions as a council.
You'll have it as soon as it's ready.
All right, so we may not do the abandonment so we may have to have a meeting before that. If we don't have it tonight, then we can just meet before that and then, or do it by unanimous consent on Monday, if we don't have the information tonight in order to do it.
You can do it on Monday.
Okay. Then the rest of the items, items 6, 7, and 8 are all property sales. And for that, we would need to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
When the executive session, members of the public will have to leave.